Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, also spoke yesterday as the Eagles turned the page from Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts plus whoever. Nick Sirianni, the new head coach, spoke as well. Here's a little something from both of them about the most important position on their football team.
Like Coach said, and he reminds me daily, we only have one quarterback on our roster, so it's definitely not going to stay that way. And we've always tried to value that position and to have depth at that position. And I don't see any of that changing here as we go forward. That's nothing that we would be comfortable with. We want to have a really strong quarterback room. We feel like we have incredible coaches on the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball who can maximize quarterback play. And so we're going to look at the free agent market, we're going to look at the trade market, and we're certainly going to look at the draft to try to strengthen that position.
We feel like good offensive football is catering to your players, particularly first and foremost, your quarterback. So, of course, we're looking at different things that fit our offensive scheme, but then also what our quarterbacks do well. And right now, our quarterback on our team, all right, we have one quarterback on our team, so we're thinking about Jalen and the things that he does well.
Here's the challenge for the Eagles. And I know there was a report not long ago that Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the team, wants Hurts to be the guy and doesn't want competition. The problem is you're sitting there with the 6th pick in the draft. Are you thinking about a quarterback? Are you not thinking about a quarterback? Well, whatever you're thinking about, you want people to think the opposite. If you're not thinking a quarterback, you want people to think you are thinking about a quarterback because you'd rather have as many quarterbacks drafted as possible before you're on the clock. If you are thinking of quarterbacks there, you want teams to think you're not. So maximum quarterbacks are on the board when you're at number 6. So it's a delicate time on the NFL calendar to be saying anything because every other team is scrutinizing for any clue. So they have the best idea when they do their own internal mock drafts who they think the Eagles would take at number 6 based on who goes at 1 through 5. Bottom line, though, is, Myles, it's a fact. The Eagles value the backup quarterback position. They have learned, unlike any other team in recent years, what it means to have a competent number 2, because the competent number 2 steps in, whether it was football's version of Slumdog Millionaire, as I said last hour with Nick Foles, or something else, you put that guy in there and he leads you to a Super Bowl. So you have to, and I've said this time and again, you have to. The Eagles view the backup quarterback position as a top 15 spot on their entire roster. So they got to get somebody else if Hurts is the only guy under contract. And now the challenge is, who's it going to be? And what kind of backup? Is it the backup who thinks he's competing to be the starter? Or is it the backup who knows he's there for one purpose, and that is to help Jalen Hurts be the best starter he can be?
Well, I don't know how many guys are like that out there. I guess Alex Smith would be the one guy that comes to mind where it's backup, but backup to support Jalen Hurts. And I'm sure that there are probably other quarterbacks still on the market, but if there were one guy that fits that mold, I would have to think that it's him. But just, from the standpoint of you have the number 6 overall pick, and there are these quarterbacks who it seems like there are 4 to 6 that can really be successful, or at least that people seem to think can really be successful in this league. If you're at number 6 overall, you have to do all the due diligence in the world to say, is this quarterback ceiling higher than Jalen Hurts? And if the answer is yes, then you probably have to pick that guy at number 6 overall. Or maybe you do the calculation and it's, you know what? We think that we can trade up, if we use our 6th pick and then maybe the pick that we're supposed to get from the Colts or whatever it is, and we can go up a couple spots and we can get somebody that we think is going to be much better than Jalen Hurts, then I think you have to do it. That's how important the quarterback position is. So they've got to do something at QB, obviously, because as Sirianni said, as Rosen said in those clips, they only have one quarterback on their roster right now, and that's Jalen Hurts. So it depends on really how Sirianni wants to construct the offense and then how they evaluate these QBs that are coming out in the draft and who they can possibly get at number 6 overall.
I remember in 2016, it became clear that the Eagles were very serious about Carson Wentz when Jeffrey Lurie became directly involved in visits, pro days, etc. This year that can't happen. This year there aren't visits. This year, I mean, you can have a limited group at the pro days. You're not going to have the private workouts, I don't believe. That's always a very, very viable way to get more information about a guy and get to the point where you're comfortable. I think the problem for the Eagles this year, given that they've, number one, traded Carson Wentz, number two, invested at least the short term in Jalen Hurts, how do you get to the level of comfort that you can upset the Jalen Hurts apple cart and bring in somebody at number 6? Because I think Jeffrey Lurie's not going to authorize that pick unless he feels damn comfortable about the player that they would be taking and supplanting Jalen Hurts and maybe making Jalen Hurts a guy who's available in trade somewhere in those 18 hours between the end of round 1 and the start of round 2. So I think that's the practical impediment for the Eagles. It doesn't apply with the same weight to these other teams because there's 3 types of teams, Myles. Teams that have franchise quarterbacks and know it. Teams that don't have franchise quarterbacks and are desperately looking to find one. And the Eagles are currently in that third category, which is we have a guy and we're not quite sure which way it's going to go. If you're not damn sure the guy you're drafting at 6 is going to be your franchise quarterback, you may be throwing one away. In the same way that you hand off Carson Wentz to a spot where maybe he's going to be as good as he was when he was an MVP candidate for someone that you haven't been able to fully and properly vet. I think that, to me, tells me, and watch, they're going to take a quarterback with number 6, but that tells me that they won't.
Well, I think that point about not being able to fully and properly vet the quarterbacks, at least as you normally would in a non-pandemic year, that probably is going to have a lot of effects, because I think the consequences of just what the pandemic is right now is just so interesting, whether it's the depressed cap and, you see all these veterans get cut and guys are just taking short-term deals because they think, well, especially now that we know what the figures are from the new TV money, everything is just going to increase in a couple of years and all that. It's very fascinating what this thing might look like for these QBs coming out, because as we saw for Trevor Lawrence's pro day, Urban Meyer's standing right there, right in front of him, and that's basically as close as he's going to be able to get to Trevor Lawrence until he picks Trevor Lawrence at number 1 overall. You're just not going to have that same level of interaction where you see guys going around in the private plane from the owners and they're working out this QB here and then they're going to that QB there. It's just not the same when you're sitting somewhere looking at a laptop or a tablet or a phone and you're talking to somebody over Zoom. It's not the same as being able to really put a guy on the board one night and then the next day you test him when he's out there on the field on all the concepts that you talked about. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which teams are going to say, yes, we want to definitely draft a quarterback, even if we don't necessarily need it, or we just don't necessarily have that level of vetting that we normally would, and that's why we're not going to do it.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.